Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd share with you my recipe for Bolognese sauce. It's really delicious. It's got a merging of quite a few different flavors, and I use this whenever I want to have spaghetti or lasagna or anything Italian. This is just a totally delicious recipe. And it's got a lot of ingredients. Most of them, as you can see down here, are spices. But what we're going to basically do, we're going to start with the sofrito, and that's how a lot of Italian dishes start. We'll use olive oil in a pan, and we're going to saute lightly about a cup of diced onion, a cup of diced carrots, and a cup of diced celery. And then we'll also add about 4 cloves of diced garlic. Then once we have that sauteed, cooked for a little bit, we're going to add our meat. This is about a pound of meat. I'm using half Italian sausage and half ground beef. You can use all ground beef or all sausage, however you prefer. And then once we get that going, we're going to add a cup of milk, believe it or not. That gives us a really authentic, good flavor. And we're going to let that cook for just a minute. Then we're going to add in some white wine, another cup of white wine. We're going to add in a cup of chicken broth. This is a pretty easy recipe. Most everything's a cup of this or a tablespoon of that. I've got 1 can of good quality Italian peeled tomatoes. And then for the spices, we're going to use, let's see if I can remember everything here. Well, the primary ones that you really don't want to do without, 1 tablespoon of oregano and 1 tablespoon of basil. Then I'm also going to use a teaspoon of thyme, about a half a teaspoon of rosemary, salt and pepper to taste, about 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, and a couple of bay leaves. I'm also going to add some mushroom into my sauce because I just adore the flavor that mushroom imparts. So let's get cooking. Okay, I have my 4-quart stove cocotte. It's a stock pot. If you want to make this in your slow cooker or your Dutch oven of another variety, of course you can do that. I'm going to add a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil. This is going to be to cook that sofrito up that's so good. So once the oil is nice and hot and dancing, we're going to add onion. And diced carrots. And diced celery. And we're going to let this saute on a high heat initially, and then we're going to turn the heat down and let it just saute until everything's nice and soft. Now, Bolognese sauce can also be made with peppers. So depending on how much you like peppers in your Italian cuisine, I find a little teaspoon or so of crushed red peppers will do, but you can also use fresh peppers if you've got them. You can use bell pepper or some type of a Jimmy Nardello, type of a mild Italian pepper. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to add a red pepper from my garden in this dish. So I'm going to run out and get that while my sofrito is sauteing. So I have 3 sweet Italian Jimmy Nardello peppers. I'm going to chop these up. Chop them finely, and they're going to go into the sofrito. Our sofrito has been sauteing over a medium heat for 10 minutes now, and I'd actually like it a little bit softer than this, so we're probably going to give it another 5 minutes here to saute. We've got our mushrooms and peppers ready to go in, and our garlic, so those will be next. This is not a throw everything together and eat it recipe. This is a slow cook recipe. You want this sauce to really have all the flavors just mingle and merge and marry in the most beautiful way. And you want everything to just really cook for quite a while. So this would be actually very good to do in your slow cooker and just let it be on low heat all day. Do it on your stove top for a couple of hours. That's the method that I'm using here. And because these are carrots, you know, they're pretty hard vegetables, I want them to really be soft. The celery is softening and the onions are pretty soft. It's just the carrots that are sort of holding up the show here, but they're beginning to soften. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't want to rush any part of this process. The end result will be worth it. It takes a little while to saute, and then you gradually add everything together, and you're going to let it simmer for a while, so enjoy the process, as they say. Okay, it's actually been sauteing here for 25 minutes, and it's kind of now getting to where I want it to be. I want those carrots to be soft. So we're still on our medium heat. I'm not going to turn up the heat. I'm going to add our garlic. That's 4 cloves of garlic. I'm going to throw in whatever kind of peppers you want to use. I'm using Jimmy Nardello's. You can use bell peppers, you can use hot peppers, whatever you like. And I'm going to be throwing in my mushroom. I used 1 extra large cremini mushroom. Of course, mushroom is another ingredient that you sort of add to taste. Some people love mushroom, other people not so much. So I'm just putting a moderate amount of mushroom in this. And if I had to guess, volume-wise, I would say it was probably about a cup of diced mushroom. Okay, so now we're going to just continue to saute this for about another 2 or 3 minutes. These are our more delicate ingredients. We don't want to overcook garlic or mushrooms. We want to keep their beautiful flavor. So that's why we're adding them in at the end here of this saute process. This is really starting to smell great, especially once you get the garlic in there, you know. Garlic always gives such a wonderful fragrance to everything. Okay, the next thing to go in is a pound of meat. You can use ground beef, Italian sausage, and I'm using sweet Italian sausage. They also do make a hot Italian sausage. I guess it depends on your palate. Or you can use a combination, like I did here, of ground beef and Italian sausage. So really break that meat up. I still am on a medium heat. I did not transfer to a high heat or change to the high heat. I don't want anything burning. So we're just going to keep cooking this until our meat is crumbly and done. And you have to keep breaking it up for it to be crumbly. You can't just throw it in here and leave it be. You've got to keep chopping and breaking it up as it cooks. So let me come back in a few minutes when the meat's ready. Well, we've been cooking this for about, I guess about 8 or 10 minutes, continually crumbling the meat and stirring, and it's really getting a beautiful consistency, color, and texture. Looks wonderful. So we're almost ready to move on to our next phase. You want to cook this until you don't see any pink left in the meat. Although if there is pink left, it's not a tragedy because you're going to be cooking the sauce and it will cook as the sauce cooks. So it doesn't have to be done. So next we're going to add our spices. Basil, About a tablespoon, remember. Oregano, about a tablespoon of oregano. And about a half a teaspoon of rosemary. About a teaspoon of thyme. Salt, we'll put about a teaspoon. About a half a teaspoon of pepper. And about 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg, believe it or not, it gives it a nice flavor. And we're going to leave the bay leaves till the end. And here is where the magic begins, when those spices and herbs go in there. Basil and oregano. The basil and oregano are non-negotiable. Those have to be included in this sauce. If you have other spices that you like or don't like and want to include or leave out, you can certainly do that. So make the recipe your own. I'm just telling you how I make mine. I'm sure there are as many recipes as there are cooks in the world. And now we've sort of got the spices incorporated into the mix here. Look at all those colors, isn't it lovely? Okay, so next we're going to add something that's very characteristic of this dish. I'm going to add a cup of milk. And I still have this just cooking on a medium heat. You don't want your heat to be too high. Here we have a cup of milk. You can even add a little cream if you'd like to. If you want to do that, that's probably better to add at the end. So we've got our milk. Next, we're going to add our wine. I'm using a cup of white wine. I'm using Chardonnay, but whatever wine you like. You could even use red wine if you prefer. I like the flavor of the white wine in this. And we've also got a cup of chicken broth. And just let this cook down a little bit. Because we want it to thicken, and that will happen over time as the water evaporates out of the dish. Okay, our tomatoes are next. Like I said, you can use tomato sauce in this if you prefer, or diced tomatoes. I prefer a good Italian brand of whole tomato. They pack them in this wonderful sauce. So you get really a lot for your money when you buy these Italian tomatoes. They're probably $1 a can more than the non-imported type, but you know, have you seen how often you get these cans of tomatoes and you open them up and it's tomatoes and a bunch of water? This is actually, look how thick and luxurious that is. Okay, so these are going to go right in. They're whole tomatoes with tomato sauce that they're packed in. And I'm going to have to work on these tomatoes to sort of mash them up. I'll probably get my masher out and just use that. Another thing you can do is you can take scissors or a knife or something and chop these up in the can before you put them into the dish that we're creating here. So here we're getting the nice red color for the bolognese. Tomatoes are doing their job. Once we get the tomatoes sort of chopped up, We are going to add the bay leaf and just sort of let this simmer uncovered until it thickens. It's looking mighty fine. I'm going to add some of these crushed red peppers because the only peppers I put in there were mild. I want a little bit of nice peppery kick to this. Not a lot, but a bit. Maybe half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of crushed red peppers. And then the last thing I'm going to throw in here is a couple of bay leaves. Totally optional, you don't need to add them. I sort of tend to add bay leaves to whatever I'm cooking because I like the little flavor it gives to the dish. So we are going to just let this simmer. I've pretty much chopped up the tomatoes. We're going to let this cook down and thicken. So we'll come back in about an hour or so. Low heat, folks, low heat. So I'm going to turn my heat down to low. I'm going to leave it uncovered so it can thicken. So as you can see, our sauce has been cooking for about a half an hour. It's still very liquidy, very watery. So you want to simmer this at least a couple of hours until it really thickens up. See, this is going to not be thick enough. It really needs to evaporate all the liquid out that you can get to make a nice thick sauce. So don't be in a hurry. Let it simmer all day if you can. At least a couple of hours. Well, this has been simmering for about an hour. And it's still got quite a ways to go. So I would say if you've got all day to simmer this on low, that would be great. If you're in more of a hurry, you're going to need at least 2 hours, somewhere between 2, 3, 4 hours to get this thickened up. It's getting there, but it's still got a lot of water here to it. And I have this on just a medium-low setting. Now, if you've got a pot that does not have a thick bottom, you have to be very careful because it could burn. You know, it's worth your while to get a really nice cast iron or cast iron enameled, or a pot that's tri-ply. So you really want a nice thick bottom pot. You don't want your sauce to burn. I went many, many years cooking as a young wife and mother, and I had thin-walled pots. And so many things burned, and it was just so devastating to me. You know, it's so nice when you can just have a pot that will cook your food and no hot spots, no burning. So do take the effort to find, if you've only got one, that's fine. Just buy yourself one nice thick pot, be it cast iron, enameled cast iron, tri-ply aluminum, with stainless steel over the aluminum. Something really good. Get yourself some good cookware and you won't be sorry. I can't tell you how many times in my younger life we're using cheap pots to try to make spaghetti sauce, and it would burn on the bottom every single time and just ruin everything I was trying to do. So the correct tools are really important. Maybe you could find something at a thrift store if you're challenged financially. Maybe you can beg, borrow, or steal for somebody to give you a nice pot for a gift for Christmas or your birthday or whatever. But just get yourself a really good pot so you don't have to worry about it burning. I've got this on a medium heat. If I had a cheap pot, I would have to worry about hot spots and burning, but I have a nice thick cast iron pot, and I don't have to worry about it at all. Now, if you're planning to cook this all day, then you would put it on a low heat instead of a medium heat. But I don't have time today. It's getting late in the day. It's already almost supper time. So I've got this on a medium heat to kind of help evaporate the liquid off more quickly. Well, here is our Bolognese sauce after simmering for a couple of hours, 2 hours to be exact. And like I said, if you put it on a lower heat, you could just let it simmer all day, but we're about ready to eat dinner at 6 o'clock here. So I'm going to have this over pasta. You could use this over any kind of a pasta dish, or you could use it in lasagna. You could put it on gnocchi, whatever you like to do with it. It's a delicious sauce. I'm going to plate this up for my husband on pasta, and we'll get you his reaction in just a minute. You like it? Well, the flavors in this sauce are just amazing. I hope you like it. I hope you give it a try. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and we'll talk to you all again next time. Bye.